And we are back. We're here. I feel good. It's exactly 1 week since we last recorded, which means that it feels like we're back on the cadence that we established when we were in the swing of things. We made it over the hump of 50. It's 51 now, and I'm excited for the next 50, the next 49 after this one. But either way, we're here. There's so much that I want to talk about. I feel that we can talk about, but we're gonna get into that. I think I feel like I'm excited about this conversation, and but let me not prolong it. We're gonna start off how we always start off with an exercise in mindfulness, and how we accomplish that is through breath work. Focus on your breath. 10 breaths, starting now. Now that we're here, I always like to get us going by introducing a puzzle, a brain teaser, just something to get your mind going. I have one here. I feel like I may have used this one before or something similar to it, but let's see. It is, I'm light as a feather, yet the strongest person can't hold me for more than a minute. What am I? I'm light as a feather, yet the strongest person can't hold me for much more than a minute. What am I? Today's conversation is going to be interesting. There's, I don't know if you can hear it, but faintly there's like sirens in the background, so I apologize for that. Yesterday I did a few things. Well, one thing in particular that I hadn't done in a while, and that's go boxing. I used to box more frequently, and I got invited to go box, and I did that. It was fun. It's always good to hit the bag. I'm a little rusty, but I'm still good. These my punches are still. I think they're still effective. And I think they still sting. So it was good. But while I was out yesterday, I made a stop to. I don't know if you guys are familiar with. I think I've talked about it here, the Gentleman's Factory, but I'm a member there. And yesterday they had what's called cigars and whiskey. It's a night dedicated to be able to just have like honest conversations. And I've been to a few of them, and the conversations vary. And I showed up last night, and it was the middle of a heated conversation about like creativity and the creatives that we know exist in pop culture and culture in general, and our take on that. And there was a few things that came up in conversation. There was when I just got there. There was the conversation around Kanye and whether or not he's a genius, and who he is in regards to society and what he has done, and measuring him against what he was and now what he is. And there's this idea about like the mental health associated with this. And one of the guys that were there kind of said this thing that I've heard like so many times, that there's a thin line between genius and insanity. And if I'm honest, I've said that before because I somehow believe that. But as in the middle of this conversation, I don't know, there was a moment of clarity for me. And I realized that it's not this idea of there being genius and insanity. I think genius itself is insanity. And to be able to live in a world where you're forced to conform to the idea of what is normal, but internally and mentally and psychologically and even your entire physiology, it's convincing you that um, to disrupt, to change, to question all these things. And if you are somebody who's active in their creativity, that ultimately like forces you to want to be unconventional and do things that may not appear to be normal. And we have, as a society, kind of termed that as insanity or being insane. And I'm not. I have no professional or academic training in how to measure sanity versus insanity. This is purely a statement on a feeling, and somebody who's like in active pursuit of his creativity, but also studies creativity. I believe that there is that the line isn't thin. I think the line is non-existent, especially for those who are fully immersed in their creativity and so connected to it, to themselves and their creative expression, that it can come across sometimes as insane. But that's not what this conversation is about. The follow-up conversation to that was this idea of around a lot of the members of at Gentleman's Factory are entrepreneurs, and it is catered to a certain demographic of entrepreneurs, and there's this theme around the difficulty of raising capital and scaling businesses because of how difficult it is to access capital. And I think that's a consensus across the members. But we had a new set of a new voice, a new set of eyes in the conversation last night. A younger guy, and in it, he spoke about his disdain for capitalism and how it impacted society in general, us as a people, and it forces it's an infinite response to a finite thing that is Earth, and capitalism pushes the boundaries of not even push the boundaries. It challenges Earth's capacity, as if though it won't eventually max out its resources. And we had that debate like back and forth, and I have my own stance on it. I don't believe in the finite nature of human beings. I don't believe in the finite nature of Earth itself. I do advocate for sustainability, but I do believe that there's always balance in the universe, and eventually something is going to happen that'll allow for humanity to continue to exist in whatever capacity it needs to exist in order for the universe to continue to be a thing. Now, that conversation itself is a whole another thing to talk about. But specifically, what I want to address is capitalism's impact on creativity. And one of the points that came up was this idea that you don't need capitalism to be creative or innovative, which I agree. I think creativity, as we've talked about on multiple episodes, is an innate thing. It is a gift given to you at birth. You are human, you are creative. And that is without question or without doubt. I will stand behind that statement in front of anybody, in front of any, on any medium, and I will repeat that as often as I can. And any opportunity I get to amplify that, I will always do that. So you do not need capital or capitalism in order to be creative or innovative. Matter of fact, it's the absence of resource that proves our ability to be creative. Necessity is the mother of invention. But creativity at scale, I think, requires some level of external resources. And a lot of the times those resources come from a capitalist society or a capitalist mindset. And this is where my challenge with it. And I said this last night, and I continue to say it. I think I don't hate a capitalist society. I don't hate capitalism. I used to, and maybe that's why I was able to like connect with the guy in question, because before I fully immersed myself in startup culture and becoming an entrepreneur, I used to as well have a disdain for capitalists and capitalism, and I used to make this statement. I said the worst thing that happened to technology was capitalism. Um, but then I sat with that, and I sat with this idea that um, there's an argument that when human beings stop evolving, technology is the way we evolved. Innovation was the way human beings evolved. If you look at the theory of evolution, every animal has shown, even as recently, like we've seen uh, existence of evolution within certain species. But for human beings, for as long as we are conscious and aware, I think we've looked, and for the most part, the same way, not accounting for how our bodies adapt to the different regions that we're in. But we've had what is a normal human has always been a normal human for as long as history has shown, post what we considered our last big evolution. But anyways, creativity and innovation, to me, is how we continue to evolve, and the technology that comes from those two things. And I believe that ever since that has been the case, that the only driving, or the one of the main driving force for that was capitalism. And and when I started to realize that, I started to believe that, I started to entertain the idea that capitalism has some value. Is it all good? It's not. Is it all bad? It depends on who you ask. I believe that it is. I've come to now believe that it is a necessary evil, and I'll tell you why. Going back to the idea that we don't need a capitalist society to be creative. But what happens when you've created that? Created the thing, when your ingenuity and innovation breathe life into art or a tool, without the resources to get the tool in the hands of the right people, or if you're building something that can save a life, if you don't have the resources to get that, whatever that thing is, to the right person, and how innovative can you be? And similarly, in the creative process itself, a lot of our artists build and create in silos, and their art and the things they create never make it to eyes that can find value in it, or eyes that can appreciate it, or eyes can take from it something that they need in order to I want to say survive, because art for a lot of people is a lifeline. And I'm not even talking about for the creator. I'm talking about the consumer as well. A lot of us have been through enough and can lean in on art in whatever capacity, in music, in visual, in sciences, in math. And that is what has kept us alive to this point. So what happens when, if in an instance where the opportunity to leverage capital to get to scale, and know what happens in those instances? And then we have pieces of art or pieces of technology or things that stem from our creativity that cannot or will never reach the masses, and it dies within the dark corner of whatever room or whatever space you actually created it. And this is when I started to appreciate, and I use the term appreciate loosely, appreciate capitalism as it relates to getting creativity out. Now, that is not without a caveat, or that is not without reservation. And I say that because what that does is it commoditizes creativity. And the value of your creativity is dependent on how valuable it is to other people, to the masses. When it becomes a commodity, Is this marketable? Is there a product market fit? Can I get a return on that? And it dilutes creativity because it's less about how authentic creativity is. It is now attached to monetization and the idea of generating capital. Now, it's scary when the masses dictate how important or how valuable creativity is, because a lot of the times how the market measures creativity is not how creativity should be measured. And I'm saying that knowing that how do you measure creativity? And like as I'm thinking through this, I'm thinking about like just the music industry in general. As time passes and generations, we go through generations. I think how we appreciate art in itself differs, and I'm not here to say one version of art or a previous generation of art is better than today's generation of art. But there's this challenge that the quality of art isn't the same. And it's not that there aren't any good artists or great creatives that are building or creating, they're not creating art that connects, that has feeling, that has soul, that allows all five senses to be engaged. I think those exist, but that might not necessarily be the art that a capitalist society finds value in, and that might not be the piece of art that is the most valuable to anyone. So, what capitalism does, it unfairly regulates creativity and assigns value to the version of it that they find value in regards from a monetization standpoint, and find value in a marketability standpoint. And that puts us in the same dilemma that we face outside of the idea of creativity, where there are gatekeepers, and because those gatekeepers are incentivized and are given this level of control, they actually control who has access to creative outlets, who has access to the platforms that could potentially amplify creativity. And because of that, we experience the things that happen in society on an everyday basis. The marginalized continue to be marginalized. There's a subset of creatives who voices, whose stories, whose art, whose creativity is overlooked, and because of the lack of access, because of the lack of exposure, and it perpetuates the same disappropriate access, the same disappropriate division of resources, and that leads to the same problem that we face on a daily basis. And I think that's the one thing that bothers me the most about this idea of intertwining capitalism and creativity. It's like I don't know that we're getting the best version of creativity in a capitalist society. I don't know that the creativity that comes from it is authentic, especially when you attach creativity to profit. It doesn't feel real anymore. It doesn't feel honest. It doesn't connect the same. It's almost like fear weather. It's here and it's fleeting. It's not as over time. It doesn't have the same nostalgic feel. It doesn't take you to a place. It is in the moment and nothing beyond that. And I don't know that is creativity in its truest form. I don't think that art that comes from pure creativity would be experienced that way. And I don't like the creativity that comes in the form of a product. And I'm saying that because even myself, like I've been in situations where I've been forced to have to monetize my creativity, and it feels like work. It feels like a job. And there's a lot of people whose sources of income and come from their creativity, but it's different when you do something that you love and you get paid for it, and being paid to just produce something that you're not necessarily connected to in any capacity. And that's kind of what I've been thinking about over the last few hours, because I'm going to say over a day, because it's been 24 hours since that conversation happened. And it's something that I've been thinking about. And I feel like we're going to get to the point, if this is the only form of creativity that gets out, the ones that the capitalists deem to be marketable and they can monetize, then I think that it limits the diversity in expression. It limits creative freedom. It limits just creativity on a whole, because if it doesn't look palatable in a capitalist to capitalist, then it doesn't get out. And if it does get out, it doesn't make it past the quiet rooms. It doesn't make it past outside of the creative space of the creatives who are putting their soul and their self into the art. And that is scary, because there's great art that's not being funded. There's creativity that's lacking resource. There's creativity that can change the world that unfortunately will never see the light of day, because the resource needed to get it to that point is unavailable to them because it's not marketable. And the only way I think we can counter it is not by avoidance. And this is something I wish I had said last night. I think capitalist and a capitalist approach can be a pathway to ultimately have creativity exist without it. Because the purists who allow their creativity, the lucky ones who make it through, that stay true to their creativity, ultimately, and achieve some level of success, have the opportunity to come back and use the resources that they've acquired or accrued in order to fund the creativity of those that wouldn't have access, to fund the creativity of the people who are the versions of them before they achieve success. And I think that is important. It's important for us to, if we are one of the few to have achieved success through our creativity or leverage capitalism to be able to attain that success, to not have to have other creatives rely on the same capitalism to get there, to lend yourself, your resources, your know-how, the thing that got you to where you are, to then offer that, to create this cycle of creativity without capitalism. And the conversation last night ended with this individual, the guy at the time leaving and saying that it's not his responsibility, or he doesn't know how to end society without capitalism. He doesn't have a way forward. He doesn't even have the time to even think about it. And that was the only thing I wanted to challenge. I think we all have within us, if it is that capitalism is this bad of a thing, especially for creatives, then collectively we have to do what we can to be able to solve the problem if it is a problem. And sometimes you have to be strategic in order to do so. And I say we use it until we don't have to anymore. With that said, I'll end this how we started. I'm light as a feather, yet the strongest person can't hold me for much more than a minute. What am I? I am your breath. Continue to be creative. I know sometimes it can feel harder, especially when you're not getting the exposure or you lack the resources to see it to completion. There's a level of delusion that comes with being a creative, being active in your creativity and building and innovating and designing. And I think if you keep working at it, opportunities will find their way to you. And I think your opportunity is right around the corner. And all I ask is that when you get it, you are one of the ones that give back. Go be great.